Crime is often reduced to headlines. Criminal psychology looks beyond them. This series examines real criminal cases through psychological theory, behavioral analysis, and ethical reflection. Each case is presented independently, not to sensationalize, but to understand. Welcome to Criminal Psychology Case Files.
So today we're going to talk about a case that just completely blurs the line between being a victim and being a perpetrator. This is one of those stories that makes you question everything you think you know about abuse, control, and what justice really means. Okay, let's get into it. To really wrap your head around this case, you first have to understand the picture that was painted for the entire world. And I mean, it was an absolute masterpiece of deception. So the illusion? It all starts right here with this image, a pink wheelchair. It's such a powerful symbol, isn't it? It's meant to make you feel sympathy, to play on all our ideas about childhood innocence and sickness. And then you add another layer to that story, a feeding tube. Just that one detail, it immediately suggests a life of extreme hardship, right? A life completely dependent on constant medical care. And of course, right at the center of this whole tragic picture, you have the devoted mother, Gypsy Blanchard. To the outside world, she was the perfect, totally selfless caregiver who never, ever left her daughter's side. And look, this wasn't just some private little fantasy. This act was so convincing that charities, neighbors, even doctors, they were all completely bought in. They offered support, money, and medical treatment for illnesses that seemed completely real. But see, that's just the story on the outside, because behind the cute, pastel walls of their house in Missouri, that public story ends, and a very private, very different reality begins. And that reality was a total nightmare. And this is where it all just starts to fall apart. The girl who was supposedly trapped in a wheelchair, yeah, she could walk perfectly. And that leukemia she was meant to be fighting, it never existed. Gypsy wasn't a protector. She was the one manufacturing the sickness. So this brings us to the absolute heart of the matter. When a whole life is built on a lie this huge, and it all ends in violence, how do you even classify that? Is it a desperate victim fighting back? Or is it something else entirely? Okay, to even start to unpack that question, we've got to look at the foundation of all this abuse, which was rooted in a really specific and really disturbing psychological disorder. This is a condition where a caregiver, in this case Gypsy, gets attention and sympathy by inventing or even causing illnesses in someone they're supposed to be taking care of. It's a profound and incredibly dangerous form of medical abuse. And this slide, man, it just lays out the devastating real-world fallout from that. You have to understand, this wasn't just a few lies. This was a years-long campaign of both physical and mental torture, all of it disguised as loving medical care. I mean, just take a second and look at this list. It's brutal. Gypsy was forced into actual surgeries she didn't need. A feeding tube was surgically put into her body. Her mom shaved her head to make it look like she had cancer from chemo. She was pumped full of medications for diseases she never, ever had. And what's so crucial to get here is that this went way, way beyond just the medical fraud. Gypsy literally controlled every single part of Gypsy's life. She basically just erased her daughter's entire identity until the only world Gypsy knew was the fake one her mother had built all around her. So when you have that kind of total physical control, it's pretty much inevitable. It becomes psychological captivity. I mean, how does a person's mind even begin to function after decades of that kind of abuse? Well, psychologically, you can see this really tragic pattern emerge. First, there's coercive control, keeping her totally isolated and dependent. That leads to learned helplessness, where you've tried to get away so many times and failed that you just stop trying. Then you get this twisted thing called trauma bonding, where the abuse actually starts to feel like a strange form of love. And the result of all that? Developmental arrest. She was physically an adult, but emotionally she was still a child. And this is where everything changes. She's 23 years old, an age she probably wasn't even sure about herself, and she finally sees a way out. She plans her mother's murder with a guy she met online, Nicholas Gojon. Now, he was the one who physically did it, but make no mistake, she was the architect. So what does the legal system even do with a case like this, where the person on trial is clearly a victim of horrific abuse, but also the planner of a cold-blooded murder? Well, the outcomes couldn't have been more different. Gypsy pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and got a 10-year sentence. The court basically acknowledged the insane abuse she'd been through. John, on the other hand, was convicted of first-degree murder, life in prison. So the legal side of things might be over, but for the rest of us, it leaves this really deep, really unsettling question about what it means to be free. It's the one question everybody asks, right? We know she could walk. We know she had internet access. She was sneaking around meeting people. So why didn't she just run away? And the answer is, well, it's just so deeply psychological. Think about it. When you've been conditioned your entire life to believe you're sick, that you're helpless, that you're powerless, your whole idea of what's possible gets completely warped. The concept of just running away might not even register as a real option in your brain. And really, that's the core of it all. The most effective prisons, they don't have bars or locks. They're built inside your own mind, with manipulation so complete that the prisoner truly believes they belong exactly where they are. At the end of the day, this case leaves us with this one final thought. Sometimes victims become perpetrators, and sometimes perpetrators are people who were never really allowed to be anything but a child. The law has to punish the act. It's black and white. But psychology? It forces us to ask the tougher questions.